My name is Beth. Got a bubble in my throat. My name is Beth Gagliardi. In case you guys have not met me before, I am dialing in from Fresno, California. And it's supposed to be like 85 degrees today. So love it. Love it. So much fun for a close day. But guys, how much fun is it that today is a bonus day, right? I love that. Today's February 29th. We have leap year. And I am just excited to chat with you on this bonus day. It's not going to be here next year. So I'm excited to share with you all what this book is sharing with me. So just FYI, we are covering pages 126 to 149. So it's 4 short chapters that we'll be going over. Guys, I don't know about you. If you have, well, first let me preface this. If you have not yet purchased the book, if you're just listening to us, but you have not yet purchased the book, I want to challenge you to today, as soon as we get off this call, to go to Amazon or wherever you want to purchase your book and purchase the book or get it on Audible. Don't just take what we're learning for it. I want to challenge you to receive it yourself. And I know me, like listening to someone talk about what they're getting out of it is great and it's awesome and it's good and it's building me up too. But when I go and then read it myself or listen to the book being read myself, that's when we start to really see things start to soak in. Repetition is everything. And I was just sharing, this is my second time to read this book. And actually these 4 chapters I've read 3 times. So it's hitting me at all different times this time around. My life is different today than I was when I read this book. So it's just really hitting me even differently today. So let's get started. And the funny thing is we're going into the chapter called Managing Yourself. But think about it, last week's chapter was moving from entitlement, control, and paranoia. So we went through from, where Tammy wrapped us up in a beautiful call from the entitlement chapter into managing yourself. So it's like he's just flowing right through, like, how do we deal with that? How do we get the other way? How do we eliminate having that entitlement mindset? And I'm going to tell you guys, I'm going to shoot straight with you today. Because we live in a business and we're working in a business that recognition is so much fun and it's everything, right? Like it's so much fun to see people walk across the stage. It's so much fun to see things happening on social media, but the other part can take hold of us too, and that becomes what we're working towards instead of the process. And I don't remember where I heard it. It was either on a call or in another book or this book, I don't know. But it was, instead of chasing the title, chase the process. Guys, the title is fleeting. And what I mean by that is the title is there, but it's not what will bring you and grow you. And so when we chase the title, we're let down all the time, because you're going to get there and you're going to be like, oh, what is this all about? And then it might bum you out because you have some sort of expectation in your head. But when we chase the actual process, which is the daily dues, which is, how we grow our business and blessing others. And this is not about me. It's about, I want to see as many people in my team walk across that stage and cheering them on. And that brings me more joy than anything else. And it's about other people succeeding and helping them reach their goals. So the process is what we want to chase, because when we chase the process, then ego will not have an opportunity to take a foothold. So I always told my kids, and my mom told me this too, maybe you guys heard this too growing up, don't give the devil a foothold in your life, right? Like any little thing you do, it's like you think about your life as there's this door shut. And, oh, it's good and protected. Your home is protected. And then, this happened to me. I went to a party when I was 16 years old, and I knew I should not be at that party. People were drinking beer and smoking cigarettes and all kinds of crazy stuff was going on. And I was like, wake up. I'll just get out of this place, but I didn't. And what happened was I gave the devil a foothold. And in our business, the way we can give ego a foothold is if, like, let's say, for example, like even when we're posting on social media, think about it, even social media is all about like kind of pumping up the ego, but we can use social media without getting to that point. So when we're posting on social media, you ask yourself a few questions. Is this going to edify? Is this going to build up? If it's going to tear down at all, then delete it. But even with that, like when we're looking to compare, or this will help us get a grip, because we just be thinking about that door that protects you, that door that you're working hard to create this protection around your vision. But the minute we like, oh, look at me and what I'm doing, we just gave ego a foothold. And you know, it might be a toe right now, it might be 2 toes, and then when that full foot gets in, man, I mean, I kept going back to those parties, and before you know it, I was doing everything they were doing and then some. And it took about 3 years of me being in hell before I was woken up to get out of that. So we want to be careful to not give ego a foothold. So let's jump into managing yourself. I gotta look at my time, make sure I'm good. I love the quote on the first page. It's not enough to have great qualities, we should all have the management of them. And guys, he gives this great example, really a comparison between Dwight Eisenhower and the guy DeLorean. And I'm thinking about DeLorean. I mean, I remember seeing a few of those in the 80s. But obviously we remember it the most from Back to the Future. So if you guys were like, what does a DeLorean look like? Some of you youngsters, go look up Back to the Future, and it's the car that took them back to the future. So I love this comparison because both men were brilliant. Both men had, well, Eisenhower definitely had a little bit more of an important role if you're looking at history and stuff, but both of them were smart. Oh, the one thing that Eisenhower did so well of, guys, is he didn't let the role of being the president turn his ego up. He delegated. He was smart. And this is so important because you're going to grow in your business. And as you grow in your business, you're going to have a few more responsibilities, and having a team and what that looks like. And I love that there are people on my team smarter than me. I love that I can sit at their feet and learn from their ideas. I love that Whitney Haynes on my team, I have been a student of hers for the last couple of years when it comes to social media. My daughter-in-law is getting ready to promote to regional vice president. I've been a student of hers, and I love to delegate them and other people moving and shaking on my business. And I also love to get ideas from folks because, guys, if I rely solely on me, I have, you know, God has given me some gifts, but I'm one. And like Carlita always says, you know, we're better together. We are better because when you bring everybody together, you have all those gifts and talents. And ego tells us, no, just you, just you, just you. And so this is something, especially for those of you guys who are newer in your business or you haven't reached the VP level yet, or even the area manager level yet, this is going to be something I promise you 100% will challenge you. So getting a grip on it today and knowing that, hey, I would love to delegate in these areas. When I started Arbonne, I was a senior pastor's wife. I ran the women's ministry and had a lot of responsibilities that I put on myself and homeschooled all 4 of my kids. But when I started Arbonne, my schedule was so busy that it forced me to delegate in the church. It forced me to do what I should have been doing more of, right? And I remember, because sometimes, guys, do you ever think to yourself, you know what, it needs to be done right, so I'm just going to get it done. Have you ever said that to yourself? That's ego, because God wants to raise up all kinds of different leaders around you. So it's important that we squash that. But I remember elevating another woman as like the teaching leader in our Bible study group. And I went in and kind of sat in the nursery. And I remember thinking to myself, wow, I should have done this a long time ago. So it frees us up, but it also takes away this idea that you are it. And you can't be it for your team, guys. There's so many amazing people above us. Don't let you be the only voice at the top of the ladder. Expose and make sure your team is exposed to everybody above them, because there is power in that. He delegated. DeLorean was stuck in the previous chapter. Honestly, the chapter before could have been written about DeLorean. I mean, even when it talks about how he didn't agree with GM, so he set off on himself, like he was like, I'm going to do it different. I got to tell you guys a story really quick, because this problem in this chapter happens so much in our business. And I remember a friend of mine when she had hosted an event for me, and I was using my note cards, and she was like, oh gosh, we're not going to use note cards. We're going to memorize it and do it better. And I'm like, well, there's a reason why I use my note cards. But that's oftentimes what happens when people join. They're like, oh, I'll do it better. I'll do it better. And I hope they do. sometimes look pretty silly doing a party because I might fall and trip or knock the products over or whatever. So I hope everybody does it better than me. But if we think that we want to get to a position so that we kick that person off, then that's the wrong motives, guys. Totally the wrong motives. And one thing that used to frustrate my husband so much, he's been a high school and collegiate coach in track and field. And in high school, he would work for 4 years with these kids. And one of his athletes, she just was amazing. And she won the state championship in California. It's a big deal in California because all the schools compete in the state championship to get to that point. So there's 36 million people here. So it was a huge, huge accomplishment. And she went on to college, of course, full scholarship, everything. And the first thing the coach does is he wants to change what my husband worked on for 4 years to develop. And my husband used to say, I so wish that these college coaches would sit down and have a conference with their high school coaches, because if they've had progress and already gone over, why not continue, that path? Because what happens is these college athletes, it takes like a couple of years for them to figure it out because they've changed up. That happened to my son. My son got a scholarship for track and field at Fresno State. And the first thing they wanted to do was change up everything he ever did. And that reminded me so much of DeLorean. Instead of saying, hey, let's get together. Let's see where you've already progressed. And let's work together on this. That, guys, is not an ego. That is saying, I might be a college coach, but I appreciate the hard work and I want to work with you. Have some great and fun new techniques you probably never heard of, but I want to work with you, what you've already learned. And so there's a big difference in that. And it's really easy for our ego to take over in that area. On page 131 at the bottom, really quick, when he says responsibility requires a readjustment and then increased clarity and purpose. First, setting the top level goals and priorities of the organization. First, setting the top level goals and priorities of the organization in your life, then enforcing and observing them to produce results and only results, because a fish stinks from the head is the saying, well, you're the head now. So as you grow, this is just something that we want to work to keep in check. And guys, we're human. We're going to make mistakes. I am human, and I tell my team, I'm human. I make mistakes. It's just gonna happen because we are human. But guys, knowing and being humble enough to say you're sorry, or being humble enough to move forward with the right perspective, is life-changing. So let's jump into, because the key to managing ourselves is not to believe we are the smartest person at the table. If you think that at any table you sit at, you're the smartest person at the table, guys, that's our ego. Quite honestly, anytime a thought comes into our head about I'm better or this or that, that's our ego. And it doesn't mean that we might not be we might be the smartest person at the table. But, oh man, the one thing that this business has taught me so much, guys, is it's taught me how to listen. When you sit and you listen to what's going on at that table that you're at, it's amazing what you learn, but it's amazing the perspective that gives you. And then you have the opportunity to share, and it's just a really cool thing to see. So let's get on to the second chapter, which is, quite honestly, I think a gut kicker, whatever. Beware the disease of me. Like, this should be cross-stitched on a saying. This should be painted on a wall. If you want to add it to your dream board, which I should, beware the disease of me. Like, beware. Like, this is like, I don't even have to talk about this chapter because he says it enough in the title, but let's go ahead and talk about it because it's a really good chapter. So on page 133, I really love what Pat Riley, and I grew up in Southern California, and during the time that he was coach of the Lakers, so we always knew who he was, but I love what he points out. He says, Pat Riley, the famous coach and manager who led the Los Angeles Lakers and Miami Heat to multiple championships, says the great teams tend to follow a trajectory. When they start, before they won, a team is innocent. Isn't this like us, like in so many ways? Like, I mean, I've been in Arbonne for 16 years, just over 16 years, and I've seen so many things happen. When somebody gets to a leadership role, all of a sudden they want to like completely separate from everything that helped get them there, you know? And I'm not saying that that's always a bad thing. I think that there is opportunities, but it's kind of like, this is my team. Or anytime I hear somebody say, this is my team, I'm like, oh, actually it's my team too, but I love you all, you know? It's what happens because success has happened and ego literally latches on. And I can't remember if we've read it already in this book, but it's in this book. And it might be in the next few chapters, but he talks about when you promote, when you reach a level, you've got to lean into personal growth and development. But oftentimes what we do is we either lean a little back or we go, ooh, look at me, or we think we don't need the people around us. Guys, do you know that on a sometimes daily basis, Carlita still gets messages from me asking for help? Like, I appreciate and love her, but I also respect her. Like, I respect where she's at. I respect the journey that she's had. I respect how hard she's worked for not only me, but for all of us, and staying steady and staying on the track and staying true to herself. I mean, it doesn't matter anything else happened. The fact that she introduced me to this business and signed me up is enough. Like, that's enough. Like, that deserves mean and mad respect. And if I stay humble in that area, it just helps in so many other areas, guys. And it helps you become a better leader as you're bringing new people into your business. But he goes on to say, when they start, before they won, the team is innocent. If the conditions are right, they come together and they watch out for each other and work together toward their collective goal. This stage is called the innocent climb. Then, after they start to win, immediate tension begins. The simple bonds that join the individuals together begin to fray. Players calculate their own importance. Chests swell, frustrations emerge, egos appear, and the innocent climb, Pat Riley says, is almost always followed by the disease of me. It can strike any winning team in any year at any moment, and does with alarming regularity. And he goes on to talk about different players, and I was shocked when he said Jordan had punched several different people. I'm like, I didn't know that. But for us, it's beginning to think that we're better, that we're special, that our problems and experiences are so incredibly different from everyone else's that no one could possibly understand. It's an attitude that has done far better people, team, and causes than ours. To be quite honest with you guys, if you look at anything, any church split, any company that splits or folds, there is a process, and you can follow the lines and eventually find ego at the root of it. I mean, at anything, you're going to find ego at the root of it, because, man, imagine, I mean, how much prettier it is. I'm so excited to work with you. I love that we get to be together and be a part of this, you know, community versus my way or the highway, right? I mean, people are attracted to the other way. And we are an attraction business, you guys, and the people that you want in your business can see right through that stuff. So we've got to be aware of that. So like I mentioned earlier, don't chase the title, chase the process. I love the example of the general that he talks about. And on the bottom of page 134, General Marshall, it said that his sense of honor meant turning down honors and often letting them go to other people. Like any normal human being, he wanted them only the right way. More important, he knew that however nice they would have been to have, he could do without them while perhaps others could not. Ego needs honors in order to be validated. Confidence, on the other hand, is to be able to wait and focus on the task at hand regardless of external recognition. So in our business, like I said earlier, there's a lot of recognition, a lot of validation, a lot of different things, because you get recognized, you get people will post on Instagram, you know, celebrating you and things like that. And what he's saying is, don't let that, like, ego is the one that says, I need that, I need that, I need that. I got to see somebody celebrate me. If my upline hasn't called me today to build me up, I'm not going to be able to do this. Like, that is 100% our ego, guys, driving that. Where he says confidence, on the other hand, is able to wait and focus on the task at hand, regardless if someone celebrates you, regardless if that, you know, tag gets done on Facebook. It's regardless of all that. Like, so we want to work towards that, because like he says on page 135, now all of a sudden awards and recognition matter, even though they weren't what got us here. We need that money, that title, that media attention, not for the team or the cause, but for ourselves, because we earned it. Guys, just remember that, you know, hard work is what got us where we're at. Hard work is you know, doing the do when we need to is what got us where we're at.
So you gotta get down there.
Hey, Beth, I think you're muted. I can't hear you unless it's me. I'm at.
No, you're fine. I muted myself. I was like trying to mute somebody whose phone was unmuted. So, and I accidentally muted my picture. Okay.
I'll listen for the people that are in.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much. So there is a process, guys. It's a rite of passage, so to speak, that we're all learning. We're all learning. I'm still learning. I don't know. I just feel like the way to always put ego in its place is to always be a student, to always have a heart of what's next, what's new. I can't wait. Like, I mean, I've sat and listened to so many Discover Arbons, but like, if you feel like, oh, it's another Discover Arbon, I say the same thing, like, guys, that's our ego. So how do we switch that? It's like, oh my gosh, they're gonna say something different. Like, I can't wait to listen. I remember in the first 6 months of my business, I was local to Carlita, and but I went to every single meeting, whether I had somebody with me, because I'm like, she might say something new. Like, there's gonna be something new I'm gonna learn. Like, and every single thing helped prepare me for moving to California and starting my own meetings and establishing that. So guys, be the continual student, and ego will not have a foothold in your door. It won't. Like, if we're constantly thinking of how this can benefit us, I'm gonna be honest, the first few years of going to Maui was really hard for me because my ego was kind of not in check, because I was like nervous and intimidated. I was comparing myself to everybody there, like, oh my gosh, that girl's been in business like 5 months shorter than me. She's got 3 direct nations and I don't have anybody here with me. And you know what's horrible about that, guys, is that was really sucky for my team, that my head wasn't in the right place. For me going to a leadership retreat, take away the Maui and the setting, that's not how we go. We go to learn and be with our community and grow. And so what I did is I switched my perspective, and I switched my perspective to, oh my gosh, I can't wait to sit at the pool next to that girl. Like, I'm gonna learn so much from her. Oh my gosh, I can't wait to run into her, because I know she's gonna have some sort of nugget that I'm gonna catch on to. When you switch, when you make that, the disease of me does not have a hold of your life. And that ego foothold, the door gets shut. It's amazing. And he talks about perspective change in a minute, but it's amazing what happens when we do that. He talks about beware of thinking we have earned it or deserve it on page 135. Oh, there's just so much good in this chapter. It's amazing. I mean, on page 136, one of my favorite quotes is, the disease of me can corrupt the most innocent climb. Like we talked about how this climb, like, you know, when we're growing our business, we're just excited to learn. But as soon as we give ego a foothold, that learning stops, and things get, to be honest with you, things get ugly. I mean, they just do. And I know I've been in that position of being the ugly person. So what I want to close out this chapter with, though, is on page 137, is when he talks about what his wife, George Marshall's wife, observed about him. She said, the people who saw George Marshall as simply modest or quiet missed what was special about the man. He had the same traits that everyone has: ego, self-interest, pride, dignity, ambition, but they were tempered by a sense of humility and selflessness. It doesn't make you a bad person to want to be remembered, to want to make it to the top, to provide for yourself and your family. After all, that's part of the allure. So it doesn't make you bad. It doesn't make me bad for wanting to grow and succeed in this business. The key is as we are on that climb, that we stay tempered, that we stay humble, that we stay, with that teachable heart. And then he says, there is a balance. Soccer coach Tony Adams expresses it well. I love this, guys. If this is all you catch today, this is it. Play for the name on the front of the jersey, he says, and then remember the name on the back. So the name on the front of my jersey is not Beth Gagliardi. It's not even Carlita Nelson. It's not Martha McIntyre, Anita Irwin. It's not any of those names. The name on the front of the jersey, ultimately for me, is God. Okay, so that's who I'm playing for. When I play for him, he will, build me up. There will be those moments of recognition. But then the next game on our jersey, it's not Beth Gagliardi, it's Arbonne. Because this is who we are together. We are all sidelines and downlines and uplines and all that stuff. But when we play for me, then there's division. But this, think about it, guys. When somebody steals somebody, that person is playing for their ego and they're not playing for Arbonne. When we don't refer someone back, when we don't do the right thing, when we're playing with the unity in mind, and honestly, if ego is on the throne of our lives, we will take people or not refer people back because we feel like we've got to have that. And it's our right. And that's when we get into a dangerous place mentally. So play for the name on the front of the jersey, guys. And people will know who you are from the name on the back because of what the front leads us in. When it comes to Marshall, the old idea that selflessness and integrity could be weakness or hold someone back are laughably disproven. Sure, some people might have trouble telling you much about him, but each and every one of them lives in a world he was largely responsible for shaping. The credit, who cares? Guys, what's most important when I think about the things that I want to be remembered for and what I want my family to say about me and what I want people to say about me, I don't want people to talk about the accolades. I want them to say things like, she made me feel special when I was in her presence. They taught me grit and stick-to-itiveness, and I want them to be things that last. I want what people say to things that will go all the way down, last throughout eternity. Those are the things that we want to be remembered for. And when our goal is to be remembered for the right things, guys, and I think that's what they're saying is some people say you've got to be cocky and all kinds of crazy stuff to get to the top of this company. BS. That is not true. And while there are in network marketing some pretty cocky people who succeed in this business, but that does not mean it's the right way. So let's jump into the next chapter. And these last two chapters are pretty short, so we'll get there quick. Meditate on the immensity. You know what I love about this chapter is it's all about reflection. We can be so rush, and so be driven because of what our ego is driving us to do. You think about the progression of these chapters. He's like, we have to manage ourselves, beware of the disease in me, and reflect. We got to meditate. We got to take time out. I'm going through the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John in my daily reading. And if you ever want to kind of really know what it was like to lead like Jesus, read through the Gospels 5 times in a row, one right after another, because you'll see he's a hardcore leader, and obviously ego was nowhere in his regimen. But I love that there's this one part I was reading yesterday about him sending off all these, I think 75 different guys to go out and, share the gospel everywhere. Like Jesus was the ultimate network marketer. And, but when they got back, they went to the mountain to refresh, and to rest, and to restore. And oftentimes we don't take time for me. And I will tell you, even from Carlita, she has always challenged me to make sure that I take care of me. And I don't know, when was it? 2012, I had adrenal fatigue, and I was going, and I was stressing out about different things going on in my family, and I had put me on the wayside and taking care of me, and I paid the price. I paid the price. My body paid the price. My mind paid the price. And after that, and ever since then, there are certain things that are have to happen, like massages and fun things like that, to take care of us and reflect. And it made me think in this chapter about when I go to Yosemite, which is like 50 miles from my house. If you guys ever want to come visit. We have a couple guest rooms. But I'll sit, and we sit in the valley in front of El Capitan. And I just sit. I remember one time I sat on this log and I just stared. I just stared at the immensity of what was in front of me. And guys, there's beauty all around us. And when we stop and we reflect, guess what? Everything starts to get in alignment. Perspective gets better. Whether you're a person of prayer or not, those are the moments for me. Sometimes I just go on a walk And we have this really pretty valley by our house. And I just sit and I look and wonder at all the beauty. I look at the birds and I listen to the way they're chirping. And I have to do that. And those are moments, those are prayer walks for me, because it helps me, it gets me in alignment. I will tell you, some of my best ideas come in that time. If you're like looking at your close day today and you're like, oh, how's it gonna happen? Go outside and go walk for 15 minutes and get your head cleared and reflect and have that moment where you can sit and reflect and get your mind in the right spot. Because otherwise, a crazy stressed out mind, ego, loves to take root in those heads. And it's a little bit easier because our guard is down. So we have to meditate on the immensity. And on page 139, he says, nothing draws us away from those questions like material success, when he says, who am I, what am I doing, what is my role in this world? So nothing draws us away from those questions like material success. When we are always busy, stressed, put upon, distracted, reported to, relied on, apart from, when we're wealthy and told that we're important or powerful, ego tells us that meaning comes from activity, that being the center of attention is the only way to matter. In Arbonne vernacular, I have to answer their call tonight, because if I don't, they don't know what to do. I have to be at every single event they're doing, because if I don't, they won't know what to do. That is when ego is controlling. I love that I was taught at a very young age, or in my business, that there's no such thing as an Arbonne emergency. And it's okay to have hours. Guys, as a leader, it's okay for you to not answer a call after a certain time of night. It's okay to have family hours. My husband and I went through a really tough time in 2006 in our marriage, and there were things he was going through and things I was going through. But at that time in my life, I just promoted to national vice president. I was saying yes to anything and everything. And I had to have a gut check with that and get that in order and be better about my perspective and meditating on the immensity. And thank the good Lord that we're here today on the other side of that. But it's crazy how quickly that sort of thing can happen. But I want you all to know that it's a lie to think that we have to be crazy people working 24/7 to succeed in this business. I have some people who told me that they think that's the only way to grow. And I'm like, that is not true. That is not how I grew to national vice president. And it is not true. There might be people out there, if you want to work faster, if you want to work 50, 60, 70 hours a week on your Arbonne business to grow faster. I mean, it's your business. You can do what you want, but we don't want people to think that that's what you have to do, because you don't. We have to have those times where we reflect and we step back. And these times, these moments also help us remember who paved the way. And I love that, because he talks about when you reflect and you look at things, and that's how my mind works, is I think, oh my gosh, these people walked here at one point. Like Vince's grandpa was in World War I, and he had a station outpost somewhere here in Central California where he watched the horses. I mean, crazy, because he was like 90 or really old when Vince was born. He was like a lot older. And but I think when I'm in Yosemite, I'm like, his grandpa walked around here with the horses during that war. Like when we stop and reflect, it just opens up the world to us. I'm telling you, if you don't believe me, you have got to do this and try, because it will be a game changer for you, because ego stands in the way of proper perspective. Page 141 at the top, he says, these folks that are going out in the wilderness to look and reflect, it's because in doing so they found perspective. They understood the larger picture in a way that wasn't possible in the bustle of everyday life. Silencing the noise around them, they could finally hear the quiet voice they need to listen to. Creativity is a matter of receptiveness and recognition. This cannot happen if you're convinced the world revolves around you. By removing the ego, even temporarily, we can access what's standing relief. And by widening our perspective, more comes into view. Again, in our Arbonne world, if we think something will only happen if we're there, guys, you won't grow a great big business. We have to be able to let go of that. We have to be able to allow people to grow. And that also means allowing them to fall and allowing them to stumble. It's like a parent who has created a perfect world for their child where they won't fall or stumble or have hardship. That parent is setting that child up for failure. And I don't mean the kind of failure, because we all know we're going to fail, but they're setting them up for hardship and extreme anxiety and extreme all kinds of other things, because they're not going to know what to do when they hit their first bump on the road, because mom and dad made it perfect for them. That's what we're doing to our team. That's what we're doing to our team. If ego is driving our ship, we think we have to be at everything and we have to be on the helm of everything. We're literally setting our team up for a fall, and they won't know what to do when they get there. So there's so much in this chapter to be aware of. And then lastly, on page 143, when he talks about when you get that moment of, where you're reflecting, let that feeling carry you as long as you can. Then when you start to feel better or bigger, the minute you start to feel, you got puffing up again, go do it again. And I put down in my book, don't ever let your head grow big. If we're like working on ourselves every day, we're going to be conquering that every day. But we can have moments that we can get away from that. And it's so important. Like, it's just so important to take care of you. And so let's wrap up this last chapter. Maintain your sobriety. And while probably some of you might have skipped this chapter because you thought that he was talking about not drinking, that's not what he's talking about. But I do think it's important as leaders to not be intoxicated. So that's important for everybody. We don't need to be intoxicated. Moderation is great. But I love this chapter because he talks about, why did I just forget her name? Angela Merkel, the Chancellor of Germany, and having the way that she had control of herself. She was a steady Eddie. And if you look on page 145 and how he describes her, in most cases, we think that people become successful through sheer energy and enthusiasm. We almost excuse ego because we think it's part and parcel of the personality required to make it big. Maybe a bit of that overpowerness is what got you where you are, but let's ask, is it really sustainable for the next several decades? Can you really outwork and outrun everyone forever? The answer is no. The ego tells us that we're invincible, that we've unlimited force that will never dissipate. But that can't be what greatness requires, energy without end. Merkel is the embodiment of Aesop's fable about the tortoise. She is slow and steady. The historic night the Berlin Wall fell, she was 35. She had one beer, went to bed, and showed up early for work the next day. A few years later, she had worked to become a respected but obscure physicist. Only then did she enter politics. In her 50s, she became chancellor. It was a diligent and plodding path. Yet the rest of us want to get onto the top as fast as humanly possible. We have no patience for waiting. We're high on getting high up on the ranks. Once we made it, we tend to think that ego and energy is the only way to stay there, and it's not. And he talks about some of the different examples that she went through. But I love what he shares from that Zen philosopher and how this guy called himself out every day. Master, yes, sir, he would ask. Then he would add, become sober, yes, sir. He would conclude by saying, do not be deceived by others, yes, sir, yes, sir. This is how we manage ourselves, guys. This is us staying grounded. This is what this is all about, is having control and staying grounded and knowing where we're rooted. And then he said, today we would add, don't be deceived by recognition you have gotten or the amount of money in your bank account. So it rolls all the way back to staying humble. We have to fight to stay sober despite the many different forces swirling around our ego. The historian Shelby Foote observed that power doesn't so much corrupt. That's too simple. It's fragments, closes, options, mesmerizes. That's what ego does. Ego is a temptress, right? It's a temptress. And we just have to work to keep that door shut. Don't ever let ego get a foothold. Don't let them get a toe. Don't let ego get any of that. But as I wrap up, I want to just finish what he says on page 149. And most successful people are people you've never heard of. They wait. They want it that way. It keeps them sober. It helps them do their jobs. And guys, this doesn't mean that we're not going to have our name in lights at one point, but it means that our name in lights is not our goal. Our goal is to help more, be more, do more in the sense of making an impact. And when I think about my business, I was telling my leaders this the other day, I said, guys, I also want us to be, we're going to be a team that people are wondering, what the heck's going on over there? Look at that fire under them. That's amazing. But I want to be known more for how we as leaders treat other people, like 100%. And that people say, dang, they are always just the nicest people. They always make me feel so special, even though I'm not on their team. They always, like, those are the things that I want our team to be known for, is that they're humble and love on others. So as we think about these 4 chapters and what they have in common, they're challenging us to stay grounded, to lean in, to remember where we've come from, and that plan God has for us is so much bigger than that. But remember, another term for ego is edging God out. And in our pride, that's one of the biggest things that we can do, and it edges people out as well, the right people especially. Ego can attract a group of people that you might not be excited about or want. And we're always talking about who you spend your time with, and ego will attract the wrong people into your life. And but a humble heart attracts all kinds of different people, and it will be challenging too. Don't get me wrong. There's no challenges. But I wrote out a few action steps for all of us as leaders today. Is to read for you. I was sharing this with Carlita yesterday. Is when I sit down to read, I want you guys, and you guys have probably heard me say this before, but I pretend like I'm sitting across the table from Ryan Holiday. And I'm asking him, how can I get better? Like, what are some changes I need to make? So I read for me, and I when I'm reading these things, and if you were to see my journal, you would see the things that God is showing me through that. So read for you, remain coachable, become the best listener ever. Surround yourself with folks smarter than you. Like, this is a good one. And be okay with that. And don't be the last voice on your team. I already talked about that. If it's okay if someone else gets credit. And we talked about, play for the name on the front of the jersey. And recognize ego is the enemy at all times. Our pride always wants to take control and be seen. Fight against this in every single way and every single day in your business. And guys, quite honestly, as we grow and get better in our Arbonne world, doesn't it bounce off and change our other world too? When we strive to be better in getting better for us, it will literally send out impact ripples to everybody you know. And without even knowing it, your life is making an impact. And that's what this is all about. So thanks for spending time with me. All right, anybody have any questions or you would like to share too? Go ahead and pipe on and we'll chat. But I'm gonna drink some fizz. This is my first energy of the day. Anybody else like to share what these chapters shared for you?
I do think the book is getting easier to understand the longer we go. Like, everything's starting to like connect and come together. I'm not having to double read as much. It's sinking in, Bethy.
Yeah, part 2 is definitely a distinct difference in how he rolls through it, for sure. I love it.
And it makes you just realize in other areas of life, holy cow, my ego is peeking out.
Yeah.
Put it back away. We do not need it peeking out. So good. Beth, read my comment I put. Oh my gosh, you look beautiful. Those are perfect colors on you too. You look so good. You do. I know. You're my favorite. I know. You're one of my favorites. I love you.
I love you too. You're so cute.
But you look great. You look beautiful.
Beth, I was just going to say, like, this whole book just helps you maintain a calm, I feel like. When your ego is not in there, if your ego's in it, you're in this frenzy. You're constantly just like, oh my gosh, I got to do this. I got to do this, because you're chasing after the wrong thing. But there's a sense of calm, even though you're still busy, you're still, very purposeful. There's a calm about it because you're going about it in the right way. And you're doing it for the right reasons and for the right higher power, whatever that is for you, that you have, that is, leading your life. And I hope you have one, because you need to be led by a higher power than you. But when you do and you follow that and you're just doing that, it's just a calm confidence that you have, that you are doing what it is that we are supposed to be doing. But whenever the ego's involved, it's a frenetic kind of like feeling. And that's the part that people, get tired of and you get exhausted with, because you're constantly fighting and competing against and for the wrong things, instead of just being the best version of you that you can be, but at the same time, knowing in your humility that you're always needing to grow and get better. And there's something you can always learn from another book, another author, another person, somebody on your team, somebody in your upline, sideline, success line. But it's just a calmness. And I would just say that's that's a way you could check your head. Like, if you want to take an action point away from this, like when you're feeling frenetic, what is it that is driving you? And is it a competition, a comparison, a chase after the wrong thing? Or are you just walking in your purpose, doing the best that you can do, using all that you have been given to do it with, which is this vehicle is a major thing, and, staying calm and moving on.
Yeah, I agree. And ego leads to burnout, and
Right.
burnout doesn't benefit anyone. And we all know if we feel burned out, then everybody else knows it too, because it affects how we respond to people and how we share. I mean, it just definitely is
Well, and it's why people don't go to, the next level. Even if you get to MVP or 4 wide MVP or 5 wide MVP, it's why people don't go to the next level, because they did it for that and they burned out. They burned out at region. They burned out at area. They burned out at nation. You burn out, you quit. If you are just doing what you know you need to do, and you're walking in a purpose and being purpose driven, like everything we do. And that's the beautiful thing, is that that's who our company is. We are a purpose driven company that, has every reason to have ego. I mean, I hate to brag, but I do Arbonne and I'm proud of Arbonne. But there's not ego. There's just this sense of doing it so well that we can maybe help the rest of the world and the rest of this industry and everything else that we do and touch, and people that are watching us learn how to do it better too. And that's what each and every one of us has the power to do. But the beautiful thing is, you guys, we're in the right environment. Everything we have feeds humility. It does not feed ego if you focus on the right things, because that's how we're being led.
Hey, something else I thought was a good check was in the book when he said about, are you wanting to one up? I think that's such a good, kind of like, what would Jesus do comment, but, or what did I just say? I forgot what I just said.
One up.
Oh, one up. Am I trying to one up in this situation?
Right.
I think it's such a good check. That's my question to myself. Am I trying to one up here? Even if it's to my husband, am I trying to one up him? I might.
Well, I don't remember who. I think it was Val Gunther was training one time, and it was at a retreat years ago. And she said that even when you're at your parties and events, and somebody starts talking about their kids who play soccer, and your kids play soccer too, and you're just like, I want to oh, my kid did this. And she's like, that's trying to one up those people. And we have to not do that. It doesn't mean that they're not going to be conversations where somebody asks you about your kids, but that has literally stuck in my brain all the time. Because what happens if somebody's talking about their kids and we're thinking about sharing what our kids are doing, we're not listening. And our ego is ruling that conversation, and it could turn out to be so much better. So anybody else? Okay, awesome, guys. Well, it is close day. It's time to go light some more fires and take advantage of the bonus day that we have today, because it could be March 1st, but it's not. It's March 29th. I love you all. And